Are there any homemaking, slow living, aesthetic accounts that don't believe women should be submissive? I'm starting to think no. Okay, I have filmed this intro many times and this is just gonna be it. Hi, and welcome to, or back to, my channel. I'm Kit, your friendly feminist cat lady spinster, and today we're going to talk about LoeppkysLife. I probably didn't pronounce that right. Anyway, if you're unfamiliar with the channel, LoeppkysLife is run by Delilah, and she started out posting pregnancy updates on her YouTube channel 5 years ago. Since then, she's gained over 300,000 subscribers, and back in September, she posted a wife talk titled, "I've been avoiding this, sharing the knowledge that changed our marriage," and I have some thoughts. But before we dive in, I just want to mention a few things. First, this is not me coming for Delilah. I'm not saying everyone should stop watching her, nor am I saying everyone should hate her. I would never say that. There were just some things she said in this video that concerned me. And second, I'm not commenting on her entire wife chat. Some of her advice, like making it a point to have date nights after marriage, was good. I'm just going to be talking about the things that rang alarm bells. If you would like to watch her video in full, I'll link to it below. And finally, I do not know Delilah. I do not need to know her. This is about people asking her for advice and her coming back with, well, let's get into it.
Today's video is going to be a wife talk. I'll admit I've been avoiding this topic for a really long time because I didn't feel qualified to discuss the topic. I've been going through a period of growth lately, and I have just realized that so much of what I once thought was true about being a wife and marriage was not at all true in any way, shape, or form.
This makes me think the answers she gives later in this video are not something she would have said when she began her channel or even a year ago. Also makes me wonder how many people came for her original content and are now hearing about modesty and submission.
And so my viewpoint on marriage and being a wife has changed dramatically over the last few months. I have learned so much about what it means to be a Christian wife and what God's intention for marriage is, and how the world has taken that and twisted it and made it something that it's not supposed to be.
I hear that a lot in Tradgram and Biblegram. They've recently learned the truth about what God wants marriage to be, and the world has twisted it. And they never do say what the world has twisted marriage into, unless, if I'm to guess by what she says later, the idea that marriage is two people coming together to form a partnership is the world's perversion, as it were, of marriage, instead of the man as Jesus and the woman as the church. She goes on to say that she's still learning and she has a lifetime to better herself as a wife and helpmeet to her husband. And I'm wondering, has she always been this religious? I have to admit, I've never heard anyone in real life use the word helpmeet, so to me, that's a sign of deep religiosity.
My goal with this video is to have you come away from it feeling enlightened and encouraged, maybe challenged, and that we can all just be here to support one another.
That sounds nice. But the submission thing makes me wonder what exactly we're supposed to be challenging and what exactly is supposed to be enlightening. Anyway, from here, we move on to the questions.
Modesty / wearing what your husband enjoys. Another wife navigating what modesty is. So modesty is going to be a little bit different for everyone. Everyone has their own rules or ideas. There's no like one set. You must wear this. You cannot wear this.
That's very true. I wish some other folks would realize that.
And that's a discussion you can have with your husband. What does he feel comfortable with you wearing in front of other people?
Why, yes, this is one of the things that made me pause and go, what? What does your husband feel comfortable with you wearing in front of other people? I am very curious as to what goes through the mind of an adult who says this out loud with a straight face and believes it's good and right for a husband to decide what his wife should be wearing in public based on his comfort.
Wearing what your husband enjoys. Again, another question you should ask your husband. This is something I ask Zach every once in a while just to see if his mind has changed, or if there's something new he kind of likes to see on me.
I find it very interesting that she makes this all about her husband and doesn't at least throw in and I find them comfortable to wear and I feel good in something, especially since the question is about her clothing.
And I enjoy wearing clothing that I know my husband enjoys because I want him to look at me and think, that's my wife.
I would say it's normal and understandable to want your spouse to be attracted to you and having a few items in particular in your wardrobe that you know they like. Maybe she misspoke or maybe I'm misunderstanding, but having your spouse decide your whole wardrobe seems like overkill to me.
There are certain colors that I'll wear that I know that he enjoys. There are certain styles of shirts and pants and clothing and items that I know he really likes that I will wear for him. But at home, where no one else is watching, there are a few select pieces that I have that are maybe just really sexy and silky, or too see-through, or too short, or too revealing, or too this or too that I know that he really enjoys, but I know it's not appropriate to wear outside of the house.
Basically, her answer is that she doesn't navigate modesty. Her husband decides what she wears. Again, there's nothing wrong with wanting to look good to your partner, or in general, but I have to wonder about why he is the one in charge of her clothing. And given that her answer is all about his preferences, I can't imagine that I'm missing some context. However, I imagine this falls in with the submission stuff we'll get into a little later on, and I guess I thought there would be a line. Something a woman wouldn't have to submit to 100% if for no other reason than the man simply doesn't care about the issue in question. But apparently not. And I'm baffled that someone, male or female, would want so much decision-making power over their spouse's, male or female, wardrobe. I don't think she means any harm, but I can't imagine a situation where it would be normal for someone to tell their partner they needed to approve their wardrobe choices. And if your partner comes to you and tells you they only want to wear what you pick out for them, tell them no, you trust their judgment.
Tips to avoid and reduce arguments. Here's the thing. There is a time and a place to talk about deep hurts that you are feeling with your husband.
Yes. For instance, you should not be discussing deep hurts in public.
But there is a time and a place to just let things slide. This is something that I am learning and navigating through and walking through, and a lot of the arguments that I find happen are simply because I need to just let things go.
I would really like an example of what sort of things she has to let go.
It is not my duty as a wife to control my husband, and it is not my place to change anybody. I can't change my husband. Nobody can change anybody. That is entirely up to the other person.
Well, she is correct that you can't change a person, but that doesn't mean you just sit back and decide it's not your place to object if they're making a mistake or a bad decision, especially if you're married and their decisions and actions will affect your family.
But what I can do is I can control my reactions. I can control my tongue. I can choose to just suck things up, to put a smile on my face, and to get over it.
So she avoids arguments by disengaging? I'm not a therapist, but that doesn't sound healthy to me. Also, I'm pretty sure the theory is that submission is how you respect your husband, and men need respect like women need love, which isn't true. We all need respect and love from our partners. But anyway, I get a very passive-aggressive vibe from these submissive wives when they talk about how they just shut up and get over it. Maybe they think it's more respectful, but my thought process goes somewhere along the lines of, but that's not fair to your husband, because how is he to know if something is bothering you if you don't speak up about it? Unless you have spoken about it many times, and now you're just fed up and looking for ways to get over whatever the issue is because he's clearly not listening. It might sound okay at first, but to me it sounds like a passive-aggressive complaint. Could just be me though.
I make it sound like it's easy. It's not. I have realized that there are so many arguments that we've had that have been entirely and completely my fault because I couldn't just let something slide. Small things, petty things, things that don't even matter.
Again, I would like an example of what she considers small and petty. Because sure, harping on something small is not helpful or healthy, but there are ways to discuss and disagree without it devolving into an argument or fight. And also, if you have a small ask that your partner continually ignores, for example, you ask your spouse to put their socks in the hamper. They don't. It's a small ask, to be sure, but in my opinion, it's disrespectful to continually ignore your partner's request for something so simple, especially if the partner is the one doing the laundry.
What small things to do for your husband that makes the relationship better? Understand his love language and speak his love language. Know what he enjoys, what makes him feel really, really loved and cherished and respected and honored, and do those things. Respect and honor are key words for wives to know and to understand and to give to their husbands. Men need respect and honor.
I was with her until she popped out with this tired stereotype of men needing to feel respected and honored. I'm pretty sure we all want to be respected in our relationships. And loved. And you can love and respect someone even when you disagree with them. Disagreements do not have to be fights. They do not have to be arguments. I was going to say this would be more helpful if she would give examples of how she and her husband talked to one another to avoid arguments, and then I realized that's the point. She just has to convince herself that something is petty and just let it go. No discussion necessary.
When my husband feels respected and honored, the whole dynamic of everything changes. We as wives may sometimes think that our husbands don't maybe deserve respect or deserve honor, but here's the thing. Your husband is an imperfect human. You are an imperfect human.
So does that mean if something she does bothers or upsets him, he just has to get over it because he can't change her and she's an imperfect human? I have a feeling that only applies to her, but if so, what an interesting relationship with no actual communication.
Our duty as a wife is to show our husbands respect and honor, even when they make mistakes. So show respect, show honor, and speak their love language. Find out what that is, have a conversation with him, ask him to take a quiz so that maybe you can better understand how you can better serve your husband and love your husband.
It is normal to want to make your loved ones happy, but in this video, her advice is basically serve your husband. But by all means, learn each other's love languages if you find that helpful. And it should be a mutual exercise, not just for the husband's benefit.
Is there an element of being a wife that you thought was going to be easy, but turned out to be difficult and vice versa? Going into marriage, I didn't think anything would be hard. I didn't think I would have a hard time with anything. I was just excited for it. I was excited to dive in. I couldn't really think of anything that might cause an issue between the two of us. And then we got married. And there were a number of times where I had emotional breakdowns.
Is that common for people to get married and start having emotional breakdowns?
And not that I ever resented my husband or I thought marriage was really, really hard, but I didn't fully comprehend what it meant to be a wife and what the wife's role in the marriage relationship is.
My takeaway so far is that she had no doubts before marriage, but afterwards, issues arose that caused emotional breakdowns, and those breakdowns occurred because she didn't really know what a wife's role in a marriage was.
It took me 7 years, guys. 7 years to finally realize what a Christian wife should be and what my role is and how it plays a part in the marriage relationship. My biggest struggle is submission.
Submission is a struggle, you say? I wonder why. Could it be because it's neither natural nor healthy to just bottle up all your thoughts, feelings, and opinions when they differ from your partners? And people will disagree with me, but I'm going to flat out state that someone who truly cares about you will not want you to be submissive towards them.
And my dad knew this. Before I got married, I remember my dad talking to me and being like, Delilah, you got to learn how to submit. You have to submit to your husband.
So my first thought is, why? Why do women need to learn to submit to their husbands? And my second is, how can a parent tell their child they need to be submissive to their house? And my third is, so her father told her before her marriage that she would need to submit, but it took her 7 years to reach that conclusion herself? It's great that she apparently was her own person for the first 7 years of marriage, but really, they couldn't have tried therapy? Of course, submission works. One person is withdrawing themselves from the relationship. It's hard to argue if one person is utterly disengaged.
And I'm like, yeah, I know. I knew all this.
I had a lot of questions, but now I see. She was told by an elder how marriage worked. As a young person, she disregarded it. Things weren't magic and butterflies, and so she defaulted to what she had been told rather than seeking other ways.
Kind of just, brush it off thinking, yeah, that's going to be easy. That's fine. That's fine. But, man, that's not an easy thing for me. It doesn't come naturally for me to just submit.
Well, per at least one trad account, it's not submission if you agree, so...
I am someone who likes to be in control, especially when it comes to my household and my children and my things, my life, my stuff. I want to be in control.
It's so interesting how it's always framed as if a woman will be a controlling monster if she doesn't submit. But it's actually quite normal to want to be in control of your life, your environment, to have a say over your children. Part of marriage is compromise, yes, but when submitting, there is no compromise. It's his way or you're in sin.
And so learning submission not only to my husband, but to the Lord, takes a lifetime of learning and practice and wisdom. So much wisdom from the Lord. And like I said earlier, I realized that there are so many times when we would argue, when we'd have fights, when I would have emotional breakdowns. Back then, I thought that Zach was the root cause for those situations.
I'm sure a religious person would hear this differently, but to me it sounds like she thought her husband was responsible for her emotional breakdowns, and to be fair, we don't know either way, and they don't owe us the intimate details of their disagreements, but it sounds like she thought he was responsible, and rather than talk it out like reasonable adults, maybe try some therapy, because I'm pretty sure getting married and starting to have emotional breakdowns isn't typical for most people, she decided she would just submit to him. Disagreements instantly stop before they even start. Great, except now one person is no longer participating in the relationship, and can it still be called a partnership if only one person is voicing their needs? Or is a partnership what the world twisted marriage into, and this is fine because marriage isn't a partnership? So many questions.
But I realize now, I look back now and I'm like, man, that was all my fault. Totally my fault, completely my fault, because I stepped out of line as a wife.
It is good to take responsibility for your actions, but I have doubts that it was all her fault because she stepped out of line as a wife. And I do not like that phrase. It reminds me too much of men being admonished to get their wife in line. You are free to disagree with your spouse. And I can only wonder what on earth they were disagreeing about and what was being said that ended in emotional breakdowns.
I tried to take control when that is not my responsibility.
She is being very cryptic, which is fine. She doesn't owe us details of her life, but no one better get upset at me for making assumptions based on what she's giving us.
I could have saved myself a lot of tears and angry, sleepless nights and arguments just by submitting, happily and joyfully submitting, and things would have been so much better.
It's entirely possible that she was overdramatic and constantly blew things out of proportion, but the solution is not happily and joyfully submitting, especially considering she just admitted that it's hard for her, so she's basically acting 24/7. This whole submission thing is hard for me to wrap my head around because even if I was the one being submitted to, well, for one, I'm not that important, and for two, I would rather my spouse feel free to be themselves with me even if that meant disagreements.
Advice for newlywed wives and things you learned in year one of marriage. I'm going to be honest, I don't think I learned a whole lot in my first year of marriage. There are a lot of people who say that the first year of marriage is the hardest and they had a really hard time. I can't say that. The last 7 years have been wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Despite my flaws and my not realizing what a wife really looks like.
Except what marriage and what being a wife and being a husband is will look different in every relationship. I'm starting to wonder if these folks are just aware their marriages are in bad shape, but hopelessly afloat with no idea how to save their relationship. So they turn to this wives must submit nonsense.
And my number one piece of advice for newlywed wives is to serve your husband with a smile. Have a joyful countenance, a joyful presence. No husband wants to come home to an angry, bitter wife. Don't allow yourself to become angry and hardened and bitter. Allow things to just roll off your back. Move on, forgive and forget, and just serve joyfully. Serve with all your heart. When you marry your husband, you are committing to be his helper, his number one fan, his pride and joy.
Your wife is a human being. She is not some car that you take pride in showing off or some object that brings you joy. She is a person.
So be that. Be his biggest fan, his biggest supporter. Serve him as best as you possibly can. Pick up his clothes off the floor with a smile.
My thought process when I heard this. So a man has to put in no effort, even if you ask him to put the clothes in the hamper. If he refuses for whatever reason, you're still to pick them up off the floor with a smile. If you're cheerfully doing things that you asked him to do, what is the incentive for him to do as you ask? And then I realized adults shouldn't need an incentive for being respectful of their partners, especially when their partner is making such a small request. It is not mountain climbing to put your clothing in the hamper. Also, isn't this setting a bad example for the kids? But really, this is just treating the man in question like a child himself.
Cook him the meal that you know he likes with a smile, even if it's one that you maybe don't love so much. If he asks a favor of you, do so happily and willingly. Make him so glad that he married you.
Right. But are you glad you married him? After that, I'm really not sure why anyone would get married if that's what it's supposed to be. It sounds like indentured servitude with a smile.
How to show respect for your husband in everyday matters. One of the biggest things that you can do to show respect for your husband is to never speak negatively about him to other people, behind his back, in front of him.
Classically, Abby hammers at this as well, and after this video, I can only conclude that when someone goes hard on this talking point, it's because they want to speak badly about their husbands and are trying to talk themselves out of it.
Never make him feel less than. Like if he does something and maybe he didn't do a very good job of it, don't let him know that. be thankful for what he did.
So if your spouse does something and they didn't do a good job of it, you're not supposed to let them know? Why? How does that make them feel less than? They're going to improve if they don't know they didn't do it right. If I found out I was doing something wrong and my spouse never let me know, I would be so mortified. Not only because I wasn't doing something the right way or because I felt I was being made to feel less than, but because my spouse was treating me like a child who couldn't be expected to know or do better.
Because telling him that he didn't do something very well is not showing respect. Saying anything negative about your husband, and I'm guilty right here. I think all wives are guilty at this at some point. Speaking negatively about your husband, even in small things. Complaining that he doesn't pick up his socks off the floor. Done that, been there. I'm stopping that. I am not going to say anything negative about my husband to anybody else. At least that's my goal. That is what I'm going to try and do. Talk up your husband to him and to other people, and he will want to live up to that.
Will he? She's making husbands sound like fractious children. Don't tell him anything negative, serve him with a smile, talk him up so he'll want to live up to whatever it is you're saying. Although if he doesn't rise to the occasion, he'll never know because it would be disrespectful to tell him when he makes a mistake or does something wrong.
How do you serve your husband when life is so busy? I do my best to make him my number one priority.
I hope he appreciates it, but it's kind of funny given how she says not to speak negatively of your husband to others. This video is giving me a very negative impression of her husband. But for all I know, he's not asking or expecting her to do any of this. But also for all I know, he takes all of this as his due and thinks no gratitude or reciprocation is required.
How to not resent Zach when he is away from you and the kids for a long chunk of time. I will readily admit that this is something that I really used to struggle with a lot, especially when he would work throughout the week and then he'd want to go do something all day on Saturday away from the family and the kids, and I just wanted a break. I wanted to have him home. I wanted his help. I wanted to see him because I missed him, and he wanted to go out and do stuff, and I was bitter about that.
Let me make sure I'm getting this right. They both work throughout the week, though she is at home with the kids, and then he would want to go out and do something all day on Saturday without her and the kids. And now she's on YouTube talking about how she felt bitter because she wanted his help and she also wanted a break, which in my opinion is quite normal, but well, let's see.
It was hard for me to just let him go and have a full day of fun away from us while I am at home taking care of all of the responsibilities, and I would allow that bitterness and anger to sit inside. It would fester and it would grow, and I would just become really angry and bitter, and that is just not who I want to be. I don't want to be an angry, bitter, nagging wife. And I think a lot of that just stemmed from a very selfish mindset. I wanted him home. I missed him. I wanted him to take care of the kids. I wanted some alone time. I wanted his help.
This woman is literally sitting in front of a camera telling us that she had a selfish mindset because she was resentful of her husband being away from the family all week and then spending a whole day having fun away from the family and not helping with the family. His family. And you know, as someone who works a 5-day work week, I can totally understand wanting a day of fun to rest and relax, but you don't get to just fluff off every Saturday when you have kids, especially when your wife is at home with the kids 24/7 and also has her own business to run. Of course, she's resentful. When does she get to have a whole day of fun? Or is that part of being a Christian wife? Your joy should be found in serving your family and nothing else. But anyway, let's hear about how they discussed this and came up with a compromise.
When I start to change my point of view and start thinking about what does he want? What's he feeling right now? How can I serve him? How can I serve my family? Everything changed. My whole mindset changed. My whole view on life changed. I started realizing how much I have and being thankful for what I have.
Just kidding. She just had to change her mindset and be thankful to serve her family. Apparently, serving one's family isn't something a husband is required to think about. Or is his service completed when he brings home a paycheck?
It makes you feel good to do something nice for somebody else. And this is something I really want to instill in my children, this mindset of serving others, helping others, doing nice things for other people.
Doing nice things for people is great, but this is going far beyond just doing nice things.
When your husband wants to be intimate, but you're too tired, touched out, what do you do? There are times when I maybe am not feeling so good. I might be in pain. I might be so exhausted I can barely keep my eyes open. And I'll say, I'm so sorry, but I can't tonight, but let's make it a priority tomorrow, and it's something we can look forward to tomorrow. But there are times when I need to just get over myself and love my husband anyway.
You can love your spouse without having sex with them whenever they want. And if they love you, they should be understanding of that. Married or no, you do not owe someone sex.
Something, okay, this might sound really silly, but something I've read and stuck with me for the last 7 years is you can enjoy sex too. Sounds silly, right? But when we get into this mindset of, oh, I'm too tired, I don't really want to, it's almost like I don't allow myself, or I won't allow myself to enjoy it because I don't really feel like it right now. But I can. That doesn't mean I can't enjoy an intimate time with my husband just because I'm not really feeling up to it. I can get there and I can enjoy it, and your husband will enjoy it too.
If you want to have sex, even though you're not really in the mood for it, go ahead. But it's still not something you owe someone else, and you don't have to get over yourself if you don't want it.
Maybe some things that I said were shocking to you, and maybe not what you have grown up believing what a wife should do and should be. I encourage you to just think about some of the things that I said, and even if it sounds wild and crazy and not right to you, to really think about it, maybe even give it a try, and just see what happens.
So be a submissive wife and marriage will become easy. Dedicate yourself to serving your family and the resentment will vanish. That doesn't seem quite right though. Her husband still gets to live a life outside his family, so why does that have to be her only purpose? If that's how she wants to live, okay. But she's encouraging others to try her way, which doesn't sit right with me. If you want to do date nights, cook a meal your partner enjoys, learn their love language, and so on, that's great. But please don't feel like you need to lose yourself and live to serve others. And to be honest, someone who loves you wouldn't want that. I do not understand marriages like this. Theoretically, you married because you loved the other person as they were. And then after marriage, you have to adopt a role. Whether it suits you or not, whether you enjoy it or not, whether it makes sense in your relationship or not. So that was actually worse than I thought. You do not have to become a doormat to be worthy of love, to keep love, or actually for any reason. And someone who loves you would not want you to surrender yourself to serve them. If you think you are the problem in your relationship, go to therapy. Learn effective communication skills. Learn where all the anger and hurt is coming from. If you can't go to therapy, search for books or videos that can help with the issues you've identified. But don't just withdraw and decide it's not your place to say anything to your husband when you disagree with him. She takes kernels of truth. It's nice to do nice things for people. It's nice to wear something your spouse enjoys seeing you in, and kicks it up 100 notches so that's your entire life. It's okay to disagree with your spouse. It's okay to not have sex. It's okay to want some time away from your kids. It's okay to be your own person. You are also worthy of respect. And that's it for this video. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I would like to give extra thanks to my patrons, and if you would like to help support the channel, my Patreon is linked below along with everything else. Liking, subscribing, commenting, and sharing are also great ways to show your support if you would like to. Have a great day, night, whenever you happen to be watching this, and fade to cats.